Greetings, I'm Dr. Aleem. This is a special episode of Dr. Aleem's Abundant Life Show. We're going to dedicate this show to a very special subject, green cake. So in one sense, this is going to be like every other episode of the Abundant Life Show, educational. You'll learn a lot. But there's an added dimension here. Green cake is becoming an essential for the diet of people today due to a very important factor that most people are unfortunately largely unaware of, and that's the problem of radiation. So this episode is kind of a combination. The last episode we did was on the subject of radiation. This is related to that topic of radiation, but this is more on the solution side. The previous episode on radiation was on the problem side. So what's the solution? Well, it turns out the solution is green cake. So we're going to tell the green cake story today. This is something that some people are familiar with. People who are clients of mine at the Abundant Life Health Attainment Center. They know all about green cake. And now it's time for you to know all about it as well. Because we live at a time that is unusual. We live at a time that is unprecedented. There is a danger to human life, to animal life, to plant life, all life on this earth due to the massive amounts of radiation that is pouring into the environment. Some of the radiation is natural. We've always had radiation. The sun radiates, it shines, we love it when it's within normal limits and balance. We couldn't have life without it. But there are changes that are taking place on the sun. There's changes that are taking place throughout the whole solar system that changes the energy flux density that strikes the surface of the earth. There are changes taking place within the galaxy itself. Many people were aware that something momentous was supposed to happen at the winter solstice of 2012. Well, it did. Actually, the solar system moved from behind a cloud that was blocking radiation coming from the central area of the Milky Way galaxy. So now we're in the middle of a new region of the galaxy that has a new energetic profile. So some of the radiation that is now reaching the Earth and the other planets of the solar system presents challenges. However, the natural background radiation from the galaxy, from the sun, is only the minor part of the problem that we are addressing today with this episode on green cake. The major part of the problem is man-made. For the past 25 years, since 1991, there has been a constant war using depleted uranium weapons in the Middle East and other parts of the world. Wherever there have been war theaters where the NATO forces allied with the United States, they have been illegally using depleted uranium bullets and artillery shells and bombs. Depleted uranium has a radioactive half-life of 4 billion years. And so in Iraq, in Syria, in other countries in the Middle East, these war zones, Afghanistan, where these illegal depleted uranium weapons have been used for now decades, for more than a generation. You have not only a reduction in the population in those areas, but children who are born with deformities, and there are many miscarriages, reproductive problems of all sorts. So radiation is dangerous, and these weapons were made illegal for a good reason, because it destroys human life, animal life, plant life, and it contaminates the environment, in this case, for billions of years. Some of the nuclear weapons contain plutonium, which has a half-life of 24,000 years. I'm giving you some of the scientific background about radiation because for the most part the American population is scientifically illiterate and do not understand the changes that are taking place in their world, nor do they understand the dangers that they are in because this is not being properly reported by the mainstream media. And even in the alternative media, there is a paucity of information about radiation. If you will refer back to the previous episode of the Abundant Life Show on radiation, you were referred to a website, the Veterans Today website, and some periodic reporting by Bob Nichols on the state of radiation. And so suffice it to say that at the present time, America and the Northern Hemisphere, as a result of these man-made sources of radiation. Now we come to the big one, which is Fukushima, which since 2011 has been spewing out massive amounts of radiation into the atmosphere, into the Pacific Ocean, to the extent that we now could literally say that America and most of the Northern Hemisphere of planet Earth is literally on fire. Not the kind of fire in your fireplace. Nuclear fire. Nuclear fallout. From leaking power plants and weapons, we have gradually seen an increase in radiation levels. So that at the present time, from where I'm speaking, in an area close to Washington, D.C. in Bowie, Maryland, we have a radiation count level now of about 6,000 counts per minute. The highest levels reported recently in this country are in Raleigh, North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, Colorado Springs. But whether it's north, south, east, or west, America's on fire. Normal background radiation is 0 to 20 counts per minute. This all relates to green cake because this problem of radiation is not going away anytime soon. Probably the major contributor to the radiation problem across America and across the Northern Hemisphere and soon into the Southern Hemisphere, I'm sure, in the years to come, is the nuclear power meltdown, the China syndrome that has been taking place in Fukushima, Japan since 2011. 3 nuclear reactors burnt through the containment vessels, spewing huge, unprecedented amounts of radiation to the point that even robots cannot survive the level of radiation. So there really isn't a lot of information because no one can actually get close enough to make proper scientific measurements and observations. The latest estimates from the Japanese, who are refusing international help with this situation, although it affects the whole world, and amounts to what could be an extinction level event if this continues. The Pacific Ocean is, for the most part, already dead. Not many fish anymore. The birds are gone. The sea mammals are dying. The whales and the sea lions, the seals, washing up on the shores. The Pacific Ocean is radioactive and dead. The Japanese say it will be at least 20 years before a solution is found to Fukushima if the necessary technology can be invented. It doesn't now exist. So I'm making the case that we live in a world that has become radioactive from many sources. And this problem is not a temporary one. We have no reason to believe that radiation levels are going to do anything but increase to unprecedented, impossible levels. Therefore, what shall we do to survive? So let's talk about what we need to do to address this problem of radiation that, whether you know it or not, is affecting you and your family right now. And even if you live in the southern hemisphere, there are planetary changes taking place in the jet stream. The jet streams used to be segregated. The northern one stayed in the north and the southern one stayed in the south. They're crossing the equator now. So all of the radioactivity that's in the northern hemisphere, for the most part, is now crossing over into the southern hemisphere. So we can look down the line and we can predict that in the years to come, the oceans of the earth will be just as radioactive uniformly as the Pacific Ocean is now. And the southern hemisphere will become just as radioactive as the northern hemisphere is now. And despite it all, what must we do? You and I must survive. So now, how did this all begin? And how does green cake fit into this picture? I'm a clinical practitioner. I'm trained as a surgeon, but for the last 12 years or so, I have focused on nutrition. I'm a student of How to Eat to Live, the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The basic premise of which is that fasting with the right food is the cure for all of our ills. I've built a nutritional practice around that principle. And whatever is wrong in a body, in a human's body, whatever health problem there might be, the fundamental truth is it's always linked to nutrition. If there's a problem in the body today, it's only because there was a problem in the food yesterday. You are today what you ate yesterday. So that makes it easy to correct health problems with nutrition. If you can make a nutritional diagnosis, you find out what the deficiency is, you correct it, the body repairs itself. Simple. Until 5 years ago, 5 people from the city of Philadelphia, patients of mine, all showed up on a single day, traveled together from Philadelphia to visit with me. They were all radioactive. I had never had any radioactive problems before, never had a problem with radiation. Radiation was not a part of the curriculum in medical school. In more than 40 years of clinical practice, never had a problem with radiation. Now all of a sudden I have 5 people who are radioactive. What am I supposed to do? And so, long story short, and this is also a more detailed explanation is on one of the episodes on radiation. But long story short, that's where the green cake came from. The answer to that clinical problem is green cake. And related to the green cake is the living green powder. So the powder and the green cake are essentially equivalent. Both of them contain the active ingredients spirulina and chlorella. The research that I conducted as I was attempting to solve my clinical problem and offer necessary help to those who needed it in Philadelphia, the answer, green cake, living green powder, spirulina, chlorella, often classified as cyanobacteria, sometimes called blue-green algae. Not necessarily do they fit in any neat category. When we say spirulina, and we'll show you a picture of spirulina and chlorella. It's called spirulina because of its spiral shape. It's like a spiral antenna. It is able to receive radiation and channel it. The chlorella is able to take the radioactive particles and eliminate them, chelate them, which is to grab a hold of them and actually help the body to remove them out of the body, which is essential. So we have the 1-2 punch, spirulina for protection against the ill effects of radiation, and the chlorella to remove it out of the body so no further harm is done. Just for clarification, this was covered in more detail in previous episodes. But we're talking about particle type radiation now. There's other types of radiation. We've mentioned UV radiation. Those are waves of light. Cosmic rays, waves of light. But some radiation, even solar radiation, can be particles, actual physical particles that are like bullets. Subatomic sized particles moving at close to the speed of light, striking whatever they strike. It could be concrete. It's going to destroy the concrete in time. See, that's actually what's happening in Fukushima. That's actually what's happening with nuclear power plants all over the country, all over the world. Bombardment, constant bombardment with these subatomic neutrons and other particles over time degrades any material. Well, what about flesh? What about biological systems, living organisms? Same thing. Now, every living organism was created with the ability to withstand a certain amount of radiation as a part of the normal environment. The universe is full of radiation. You could say, in one sense, the universe is radiation. So we are meant to exist and coexist and even thrive on certain types of radiation. Our whole planet is given its life and light from the sun. But there are other types of radiation, or too much radiation, even of the right sort, that can be dangerous to health and even to life. Radiation can be used to sterilize, to completely eliminate life. And so when we have dangerously high levels of radiation, that is what we're talking about. We're talking about the damage that is done by bombarding particles moving at near the speed of light, and they hit the DNA or the RNA or other vital cellular structures in living organisms, and that kind of damage up to a point can be repaired. The organism can adapt. But what we're talking about when we have levels of irradiation that are in the thousands of counts per minute, that's way beyond the ability of plants, animals, and humans to adapt. And so the green cake, the green powder contain the spirulina and the chlorella to help humans and animals and perhaps plants to survive the bombardment of radiation that is taking place on our planet. Let's take a look at some of the scientific data concerning spirulina, and for that matter, chlorella. Remember, you might look this up and you would find listings under cyanobacteria as well as blue-green algae. The classification system is a little bit arbitrary. We're focusing on spirulina because that has a long history of human consumption, and it is the main ingredient in the green cake and the living green powder. But whatever we say about spirulina in one way or another is true about all types of blue-green algae or cyanobacteria. Okay, so this is, I'm going to read an abstract from a research paper that was published recently. And it shows some of the amazing clinical properties of cyanobacteria. Oh, here we go. Spirulina, a filamentous cyanobacterium, possesses diverse biological activities and nutritional significance due to high concentration of natural nutrients, having biomodulatory and immunomodulatory functions. Different spirulina preparations influence immune system, that is to say, increasing phagocytic activity of macrophages, stimulating the production of antibodies and cytokines, increasing the accumulation of natural killer cells into tissue and the activation and mobilization of T and B cells. Major impact on the immune system, in other words. Spirulina has also been shown to perform regulatory roles on lipid and carbohydrate metabolism by exhibiting glucose and lipid profile correcting activity in experimental animals and diabetic patients. So again, now, even though we're focused on the problem of radiation, what we're seeing here is the immune system is strengthened by spirulina and cyanobacteria, and also the basic metabolic functions related to obesity, diabetes, and other metabolic syndromes is corrected. Preparations have been found to be active against several enveloped viruses, including herpes, cytomegalovirus, the influenza virus, and yes, HIV. What that tells me as a clinician is spirulina chlorella, which is to say green cake, is pretty much going to help you against anything. They are capable of inhibiting carcinogenesis due to its antioxidant properties that protect tissues and also reduce toxicity of liver, kidney, and the testes. So what that's saying is to inhibit carcinogenesis stops cancer, prevents cancer. That's a major statement. In general, I think everybody appreciates the importance of cancer, where it is now estimated that 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 Americans will develop cancer in their lifetime. Well, guess what? With this sudden increase of radiation levels, which suddenly spiked, by the way, on Inauguration Day. But this sudden spike in radiation means that the cancer rate in the future is just going to be just almost universal. Under these circumstances, it would be pretty much predictable. Pretty much everybody's going to get cancer. If 1 in 4 got cancer without the radiation, what do you think is going to happen with the radiation? It's already happening. If you look at the statistics, you will see that there is an upsurge in thyroid cancer in children, not just in Japan, where Fukushima is, but also in Canada and in America, all over North America, spike in thyroid cancer from the radioactive iodine-131. But also widely reported is an increase in overall death rates in developed countries in the Northern Hemisphere. Increase in death from cancers of all sorts, increase in death from infectious disease, increase in death from cardiovascular disease, so on and so forth. But what is the underlying cause of this sudden increase in the death rate, in the lowering of life expectancy for the first time in America and other developed countries? The underlying unspoken reality is radiation. And so we live in a new world. The world that you were born into, the world of your parents, the world of your grandparents, it's no more. What is the future? The future is radiation. Those who learn to handle radiation are those who will survive. Those who cannot handle the radiation are those who will not survive. It's just that simple. Anyone who is unaware of these changes is in great danger. Those who are aware, and that now includes you, there's something that you must do, because simple awareness by itself is not enough. I lost sleep trying to figure out what to do to help these people with radiation. I couldn't figure it out. The literature pointed to spirulina and blue-green algae, but how do you get enough of that into a human body to do any good? It doesn't taste very good. Anybody who has experience with blue-green algae knows this is really rough. And even though I knew that I needed to take it myself to protect myself, I could hardly make myself take it. It was so awful in taste. So the genius, if you want to call it that, of green cake and the development is it tastes good. It tastes better than anything. Now, if you look on the label there, I don't know if you can actually zoom in on there. It says that. Better than anything. And that is not just an idle boast. That's true. I've been introducing green cake now for about 5 years. And I call it better than anything. I have yet to be contradicted. If you got something better than this, show it. I don't think you can. So this is a special thing. It came to me in a dream. I didn't know what to do. It came to me in a dream. I saw myself in a dream mixing something in my kitchen. That evening, I went home in my kitchen and I reenacted the dream, and I pulled down the things off the shelf in my kitchen, and the end result was the early version of green cake. Wasn't as nice and as refined and tasty as this is, but it did the job. And I was able to treat those people who were radioactive with great effect. And along the way, they discovered that it was really good. And long after the radiation problem had been solved for those individuals, they continued to eat the green cake, and then later came the green powder, just because it simply tastes good, and it is good, and the nutritional value of it is unparalleled. So we developed green cake and living green powder from a dream to solve a clinical problem involving radiation that at that time was confined to Philadelphia, where a nuclear power plant was dumping radioactive wastewater into the Schuylkill River. At that time, a radiation hotspot was 200 counts per minute. I remember one time they evacuated a part of LAX airport when the radiation count went to 217. The Environmental Protection Agency guidelines call for evacuation when counts per minute go over 500. But what are you going to do when from coast to coast, border to border, throughout the whole northern hemisphere, you have counts per minute up to 14,000, 15,000. Where I am right now, 6,000. Probably where you are, in the thousands of counts per minute. So suffice it to say, green cake was developed at a time when the radiation challenge was only 1/10 or even 1/20th of what it is today. But I'm happy to report that so far it's holding its own. Now along the way we found that spirulina had quite a history. Chlorella has quite a history. As a matter of fact, pretty much the longest history of any life form on the earth. It might be the primordial life form. There are fossils that are 4 billion or more years old, showing the fossilized impressions of spirulina before the earth had an atmosphere, when the surface of that protoplanet was being bombarded with radiation from outer space. There was no protective atmosphere. As a matter of fact, here's what you need to think about. These cyanobacteria, blue-green algae, the spirulina and chlorella, form today 60% or more of the biomass on our planet. What does that mean? It means if you added up all of the living material, all of the living organisms on planet Earth, 60% of it is cyanobacteria. These blue-green algae, these primordial life forms. And what have they done over 4 billion years? They've given us this wonderful planet with its atmosphere and its air and its climate. They form the basis of the food chain. In the ocean, these kinds of organisms are called phytoplankton. So this is the base of the food chain. So it feeds all of the other fish and on up the food chain until you reach the human being. So what we're doing with the reintroduction, and I say reintroduction of green cake, is we are taking human beings and human nutrition back to the primordial source, the original food source of planet Earth, from which all other life derived and upon which even to this day all other life depends. If you were going to go to another planet that didn't have an atmosphere, if you had enough water on that other planet, you could plant spirulina and chlorella and you could create an atmosphere on another planet. That's how powerful this stuff is. So although we're not actually talking about that right now, in the future we will. Right now we're just trying to survive on this planet that has become very radioactive. And this is the thing to do it. Now, what we found as our research went on is not only is spirulina, chlorella, the cyanobacteria in general, a great protector from radiation, it's a tremendous food source in and of itself. It is probably the most nutritious, in fact, as far as I know, it is the most nutritious food on planet Earth. Now, we worked out some of that nutrition profile. This is my my lab kitchen notebook, and so we have it all worked out. And I'm just going to go through some of it. But suffice it to say, people are often concerned about protein. We were talking about the highest protein source known. Let me just find here a summary here. So a serving size of about 1 ounce. This particular container here is 22 ounces. So you can multiply everything I'm saying right now by 22. So 1 ounce of green cake is going to give you 148 calories. Not bad. Total fat, and this is omega-3 and omega-6s, along with omega-9s. A total of 6.3 grams per serving size. Total carbs, 17 grams. It's a lot of energy. Total protein, 5.6 grams per ounce. There's no cholesterol at all. Sodium is 0.75 milligrams. Fiber, 0.24 grams, not much. And iron gives you 118% of the daily need. It contains all other known vitamins, with the exception of vitamin B12 and vitamin D. Now those are available from other sources. All of the macro and trace minerals, all of them. One of the reasons that the green cake contains all of the minerals is because one of the ingredients in it is Celtic sea salt that contains the 92 nutritional minerals that the body must have. Almost everybody eating a modern diet is mineral deficient. This corrects it. It also contains all essential fatty acids and all amino acids. So we're not going to go into all of the details of it, but essentially what we're saying is that the green cake and green powder, not only is it protective against the ill effects of overwhelming radiation, but it is also a nutrition foundation that is unsurpassed. As you can see from my button here, I'm a proponent of raw milk. I put raw milk at the top of the food pyramid. But what's the capstone to the pyramid? Well, I would put the green cake and the green powder as the capstone to the food pyramid. Now, as good as green cake is, it does have its critics. So one of my scientific buddies, he wasn't too impressed with it. He called it amphibian food. Amphibian food, because actually, he's got a point now. I've been keeping a secret away from you. What is spirulina and what is chlorella? Commonly known as pond scum. Not just any pond scum, but a special kind of pond scum. Is actually no more than that. But around the world you have, in certain locations, you have alkaline freshwater lakes. And spirulina grows naturally in those lakes. So you have Klamath Lake in the northwest corner here in America. In Africa, Lake Chad and all of those central lakes, they're alkaline, and spirulina naturally grows in those lakes. in Mexico, in other parts in South America. Spirulina grows naturally as pond scum. So my buddy, he has a point if he wants to call it amphibian food, but I look at it like this. If you are what you eat and you're eating amphibian food, then you would probably develop the ability that amphibians have. What happens if you cut the tail off of a salamander? It grows back, doesn't it? So maybe we should all eat amphibian food because things are getting chopped off all the time with radiation and other things, and we need to regenerate tissue. We need to regenerate cells that are being destroyed by the environmental toxins, the radiation, all the things we're talking about. We need regeneration. That's part of what health means, is the ability to make something that has gotten old and worn and tired and diseased or even dead, bring it back to life. And so here's what we have. Amphibian food, you're correct. Regenerate your life, reignite life. And so nutrition is, the nutritional factors, I should say, of the green cake are extremely powerful. More powerful than anything that I know. And so that's why I can make that boast. I sound like Muhammad Ali, better than anything? Yeah. And people thought Muhammad Ali was crazy. They thought he was egotistical till he knocked Sonny Liston out. He actually did knock him out. So when he knocked him out, that's when people say, hey, maybe he is the greatest. Maybe he really is. And he really was, wasn't he? Of course he was. Because he proved it. He backed up what he said by what he could do. And so green cake is the greatest in nutrition. It's better than anything. I even went so far on some labels and in some ads for green cake, I call it here after food, here now. Here after food, here now. What does that mean? This is the food of the future. Religious people believe in a hereafter. Muslims believe in a hereafter. Christians believe in a hereafter. Religious people believe that we would go through a time of trouble. It's written about in Scripture. It's what the prophets predicted, that there would be a time of trouble and turmoil on the earth, and it's even described as kind of a fiery destruction. They used to sing that song in the church. God gave Noah the rainbow sign. But this time it's fire. It's fire next time. No more water, it's the fire next time. So what kind of fire are we talking about? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that America will burn. I think he said 390 years, and it would take 610 years to cool off. Well, what kind of fire is that? Well, it's radiation, and it does last that long. And so for the foreseeable future, as we go into the predicted future, as we go into what is referred to as the hereafter, how are you going to get there if you get burned up in the radiation now? So you think about that. What means and method do you have of getting there? You got to travel through the fire, and the fire is raging now. And if you don't do something quick, you won't get there. I wrote a note to President Trump right after his election and all of his big talk about making America great again. I told Mr. Trump, you're not going to make anything great again if you don't handle this radiation problem. I'm saying the same thing to the Chinese. You're talking about building your new Silk Road, road, one belt. Okay, that's great. But it's not going to be if all your people are being destroyed by radiation. Nothing wrong with your ideas, nothing wrong with your program. But you have to be able to survive. You actually have to be here to carry it out. These levels of radiation are unsustainable. And so something must be done. And there's something that can be done. Eat green cake. Use the living green powder. Now, the green cake, to be quick about it, is a convenient food in and of itself. It's called green cake. Let me open up this so you can look at it. It's going to look black to you. It looks solid black, but it's really green. It's so green it's black. At the center of black is green. But that's a topic for another discussion. So this deep green absorbs the energy coming from the sun and other energy sources. It absorbs the radiation and transduces it and makes it harmless. In the green cake form, it's we call it a cake because you can cut it, slice it, eat it, chew it. It's like a brownie. I started to call them greenies, but people just started calling it green cake. I had other names for it, but people just started calling it green cake. So it's called green cake. So it's chewy, it's good, it's delicious, it's a convenience food. If we listed the features of it, it's on-the-go food. You can just take that with you. It's a great travel food. Throw it in your luggage, throw it in your backpack. You don't have to worry about what you're going to eat when you're at the mall. Wherever you go, an ounce or two of green cake, that's a meal. That's a meal. Goes great with the raw milk. Goes great with water, goes great with juice, goes great with anything. I love it with chocolate. I don't even get mad anymore when people put it in ice cream or things like that. I don't care how bad the other food is. This is so good, it actually brings the bad food up. So I don't have to be as stringent with my nutrition clients anymore. As long as they're eating the green cake, I almost don't care what else they eat. The green cake is going to make up for the difference, or the powder. We've already talked about the effects on radiation. Now, here's the big thing. Here is really the big thing. I told you the story of how I was forced clinically to solve a problem, and along the way discovered that green cake and spirulina and the chlorella is the solution to malnutrition. It has nothing to do with radiation per se. It has to do with malnutrition. 1/3 of the population, 7 billion people on this earth, and 1/3 of them are hungry. Another third are not that well nourished. They may not be hungry, but they're not that well nourished. And even those who consider themselves well nourished in the developed countries, how well are they really nourished? Eating GMO, eating processed foods, fast foods, refined foods. How well nourished are they? They're big and fat, that's for sure. Does that equate to good nutrition? Look at the worsening health status of the population. How good is the nutrition status then? You're no better, your health status can be no better than your nutrition status. You are what you ate. If what you ate was sick and deficient, you're sick and deficient. Yeah, that's what's wrong with you. You're eating, some of you are very meticulous about your diet. You're eating the right things by name. And you should get good credit for that. But that carrot or that apple or that celery or whatever that good food is that you're eating, that you read about, that somebody said was a superfood, it's not what your grandmother used to eat. It's not what it used to be. And so you need help. You need help to up the nutritional value of what you're eating, and then for the 1/3 of the people of this earth who are abjectly hungry, starving, that's what the green cake is for. It's for them. The powder is for them. We want to feed the world. There's no excuse for hunger in this world. I'm glad to see the development of infrastructure in Africa and Asia. The One Belt, One Road initiative, actually put forth originally by Lyndon LaRouche and his wife, Helga LaRouche, adopted by the Chinese, and now accepted by over 180 nations. So they're all cooperating to build the new infrastructure. And I recently met with a delegation from China who were in the United States investigating food issues and food research, attempting to arrive at solutions to the hunger problem globally. I introduced them to green cake, and I told them what my dream is, and I'll tell you what my dream is. My dream is to have tons and tons of green cake and green powder on the maglev trains on the New Silk Road, dropping off food, nutrition to people all over Asia, all over Africa, in fact all over the world. I'll tell you what my dream is. My dream is I intend that green cake and green powder is going to be the staple food for human beings on planet Earth. Why am I so adamant about it? Because as far as I know, that's the only way you're going to survive. So general nutrition for the planet. That's what green cake is. We're going to feed the planet. We're going to eliminate malnutrition in Africa. We're going to up the nutritional status of everybody. And if we up the nutritional status of everybody, then we're upping the human potential of everybody. And that's how we're going to have a better world. And that's why I can truthfully claim that this is hereafter food, here now, because if you're going to have a new world to come, then you have to have a new food to feed the people that inhabit that new world. If all you have is the old food, then all you're going to get is the old people, and all they can do is build the old world all over again. And we all know this old world that we have right now is not good enough. You know that. Now, one of the great potentials of both the powder and the green cake is it enhances physical performance, athletic performance. It reduces sports injuries. It reduces recovery time. Because of the high protein content, the high energy content, the high vitamin content, the high mineral content. There is no sports food to compare with living green powder or the green cake. I had an aging boxer, just to tell a story. He was a professional boxer in his late 30s. And he was one of these guys, you know, like second tier fighter. If you were in the fight game, you would know his name. If I mentioned it, I won't. But never quite in the top rank. You know, just sort of always there. People knew about him, you know, but never quite in the top rank. And so there was an injury one time. He came to see me. We got that taken care of. Then we got him, you know, on the green cake and green powder. And he told me, by this time he was about 39, he told me he really wanted to box again. And he really thought he could be the champion. Well, I didn't know whether he could or not. So we put him on a program that included the green cake and green powder. Sure enough, now he got back in the game. He fought his way up and became a contender and had a heavyweight fight. Not for the, you know how they have these different divisions. So it wasn't the top division, but it was a heavyweight division fight that he had in Italy. He lost. He lost. But the point of the story is, here is a professional athlete past his peak who goes on after his peak to rehabilitate himself and get back into contention for the heavyweight title of the world. Now, I'm proud of that. I mean, I wish he would have won, but nonetheless, that's a great story. We also have other athletes, high school athletes, you know, who have just tremendously upped their game, or in some cases just reduced the level of injuries. They had athletes who are on the bench half the time due to sore knees and ankles and, you know, all kinds of injuries. On the green cake or the green powder, a lot of the young guys, they don't worry with some of the fancy recipes. They just take the green stuff, they just throw it in some water, shake it up in a bottle and just drink it, you know. They don't worry about how it tastes. It tastes pretty good, but I wouldn't do it like that. The way I would do it, I would take a teaspoon of this powder and I would put it in warmed milk. I warm it up in a double boiler, maybe about a quart of milk. I put a tablespoon of ghee. When the ghee starts to melt, that's a sign that the milk is about 95 degrees, 98 degrees, pretty much body temperature. That's when I mix in the powder and anything else I'm going to add. I might add some honey. I might add some tahini. I'll get a ripe banana or some strawberries or whatever I want to use. And I blend that up. And I'll consume it warm in the wintertime. And the more powder you put in it, you can actually make it thick. You can make it thick enough that the spoon will stick up in it. And it's kind of like a porridge. You can actually eat it with a spoon if you want to. I usually don't like it that thick. Some people do. I like it thinner. And then in the summertime, you just chill it with ice cubes and you make it into like a milkshake. delicious, 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 but it's giving you all of the nutrition that the body needs. This is a high performance food. So people who want to live at their peak, people who are active, people who are on a mission, people who are trying to accomplish something, people who are filled up with the spirit of something and don't need to be burdened by weak flesh. You know how the scripture says it. The spirit's okay, but the flesh is weak. So, strengthen the flesh. So let's wrap up some of the features, and these are just some of the features of the green cake. Space food. This is what NASA needs. This is what the European Space Agency needs. This is what the Chinese Space Agency needs. What are your astronauts going to eat on their way to Mars or wherever they're going? Elon Musk, are you listening? This is what your people need. This is the most efficient food that you could have. It's imperishable. Recently, NASA had taken some blue-green algae, I think 20 samples, put it on the outside of the space station, exposed it to interstellar space for 2 years. After 2 years in interstellar space, if I remember correctly, 16 out of the 20 samples revived. The spores of the blue-green algae were able to survive interstellar space. This is natural space food, astronaut food. You would take this with you to Mars. That's what you would take that with, okay? You don't have to refrigerate it. You don't have to do anything to it. You don't have to cook it. It does not require any energy except elbow grease to make it. I don't cook it. I don't use any energy source to make it. The green cake with the seeds, yes, a little toasting of the sesame seeds, but other than that, it's completely raw. Now, what's the past history of green cake? Is this something really new? Not really. What we find when we look in history is the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, they knew about spirulina and they made their kind of green cake. They would skim it off of the lakes in Mexico. They would dry it in the sun, grind it up into a powder, mix it with maize and spices, and they would make it into some kind of a green cake. This is what they fed their soldiers. This was what they would feed their messengers who would run long distances. You see? So it has a long history going back hundreds, even thousands of years. When the Spaniards moved in, they destroyed that part of the Aztec and Mayan culture in Mexico. Not only did they make a green cake, but they used the spirulina itself as a fertilizer to enhance the growth of other plants, which of course is another way of producing food. And so in that way, in central Mexico, they were able to get 6 harvests a year using spirulina as fertilizer. Same thing in Africa. Along Lake Chad and other lakes in Central Africa, spirulina and other blue-green algae grow naturally. They make it into a green cake. They call it dihe. This is what they preferentially feed to pregnant women because they know the nutritional value of the spirulina is going to ensure a safe, successful pregnancy and the birth of a healthy child. Now they mix it with their spices. So the interesting thing about green cake is it's ancient in and of itself, going back billions of years. But even in human history, it has a long, long history. 2,000 years ago, green cake of a sort made with spirulina was being used in China and Indochina. In modern day Vietnam, spirulina and other blue-green algae are grown and it enhances rice production. They grow the spirulina in the rice paddy along with the rice, and it enhances the production of the rice. And so spirulina, chlorella, blue-green algae are ancient life forms, maybe even the primordial life forms on planet Earth, having the greatest survival potential known of any living organism on the Earth. Not only may they be the primordial life forms on planet Earth, but even today, 60% of the biomass of planet Earth are blue-green algae. So this is a tremendous resource of the actual raw power of life itself to survive under the harshest conditions. So if you are what you eat, then you better start eating green cake, because the conditions on planet Earth right now, they are of unprecedented severity. and challenge every living thing to see whether or not we can go into a future. And so Green Cake is here to help make that journey. And so here is contact information. If you focus in on that, so that in the future, wherever you might be, you will be able to get your hands on some of this wonderful, wonderful green cake. Thank you. You saw the contact information there. If you would like to learn more about green cake or be a part of the green cake story as it evolves, I think it has an unlimited future to help humans and animals and plants to survive in the coming years that challenge all of us to our utmost. And so I hope that you are inspired by what you're hearing to know that there is a solution to these problems, that we don't have to bury our heads in the sand, but we can stand as men and women, and we can stand together, and we can meet the challenges that plague us today that seem to be overwhelming, because life has been here. Life has been here for a long time, and life has always been challenged, and life is challenged today. And so we can't shrink away from the challenges of life. We can only meet them. And so I'm proud to say the green cake is here, the living green powder is here to help you, me, and all of us to meet the challenge of life.